Welcome back to Nuclear Proliferation Explained. I'm William Spaniel. Today's topic is nuclear explorers, countries that quit before truly starting. You'll remember that we have three levels of classification along the proliferation path. There is possession of actual nuclear weapons, something that you can use. There is pursuit, where you are actively trying to acquire a nuclear weapon. And then there is exploration, where you form committees to find out how expensive it would be and whether you have the technical capacity to construct a nuclear weapon. And we're focused in this lecture on that last category. There are a lot of nuclear explorers throughout history, so we're going to go through each of them rather quickly. And we begin with Nazi Germany. This is an interesting case. I've mentioned before about the race to develop nuclear weapons during World War II. Nazi Germany was a participant, but they bowed out relatively quickly. Despite being aware of the possibility of nuclear weapons, military planners calculated that they probably would not be necessary. You see, the conventional war, the blitzkrieg on the ground, was going so well that planners decided it would be better to focus all of their energies on that rather than trying to develop a weapon system which might not come to fruition for many years. Of course, in the long run, this did not work out. The blitzkrieg eventually stalled out, and by the time the war was turning against Nazi Germany, military planners were calculating that it would take too long still for those weapons to be developed for them to be able to overturn what was happening on the ground. And as a result, Nazi Germany never went beyond exploration of nuclear weapons. Axis partner Japan also explored nuclear weapons during World War II. But like Nazi Germany, they ultimately decided not to pursue nuclear weapons because of the long time horizons expected to actually acquire one. You will notice that Japan actually had two different segments of exploration, one that followed World War II, ranging from 1967 to 1972. And you actually know part of the major motivation for this. Think back to why South Korea pursued nuclear weapons during roughly the same time period. The motivation there was the announcement of the Guam Doctrine by Richard Nixon. This was saying that allies were primarily responsible for their own security. Japan looked at this and thought about nuclear weapons perhaps as being the answer to that problem. There was a significant barrier here with Japan as compared to South Korea. Japan remains the only country that has ever experienced a nuclear attack. In fact, twice during World War II. This has created a norm within the country that runs against nuclear weapons. And so that contributed to Japan's ultimate decision not to pursue nuclear weapons, despite the announcement of that Guam Doctrine. Still, Japan is a special case. If you think about every single country in the world that does not have nuclear weapons, Japan by far has the greatest nuclear capacity. This is informing a central puzzle that I've alluded to before in proliferation studies. Lots of countries can develop nuclear weapons, but don't. And we're going to think more about why that's the case in later lectures. The third explorer is Switzerland. The main motivation here was Switzerland's underlying and perennial desire to remain neutral. So the thinking goes, if Switzerland has a nuclear weapon, then that would convince other states not to involve Switzerland in its wars. But because this is a perennial goal of Switzerland, Switzerland just does not have very many policy disputes. And without very many policy disputes, there's not very much value in developing nuclear weapons. And so Switzerland chose not to. Sweden has a similar story insofar as part of the goal was to maintain neutrality. However, Sweden also had a security concern that Switzerland did not. During World War II, the Soviet Union tries invading Finland. Doesn't ultimately work out, but nevertheless, Sweden has a worry that the Soviet Union might try that again, and then come into Sweden afterward. And so developing a nuclear weapon might deter the Soviet Union from engaging in that sort of behavior. Ultimately, Sweden decided against nuclear weapons. The issue was fundamentally costs, and Sweden believed that the return on investment would be higher if they put that cash toward conventional weapons rather than nuclear weapons. Sweden's neighbor Norway also explored nuclear weapons around the same time. Like Sweden, Norway's concern was invasion, especially following World War II. However, Norway concluded that nuclear weapons were unaffordable given the size of the country and its current economic positioning. Nevertheless, thinking about Norway is important for other proliferation concerns. In fact, at one point, Norway was the world's supplier of heavy water from the facility that you see on the screen here. Heavy water is a key component in one pathway to developing nuclear weapons, and so this is not going to be the last time we talk about Norway or this facility. The sixth explorer is Egypt. Obviously, what was driving Egypt's thought process here was its rivalry with Israel. But what keeps Egypt from going beyond exploration and to pursuit of nuclear weapons is the termination of that rivalry. When Egypt and Israel sign the Camp David Accords, shortly thereafter, Egypt receives the Sinai Peninsula from Israel. Israel had captured the Sinai Peninsula from an earlier war, and Egypt was still bitter about this. But when Israel gives back the thing that Egypt wants, the payoff, the return on investment for developing nuclear weapons goes down. And with that, so does Egypt's incentive to pursue nuclear weapons. Next up is Italy. In the 1950s, Italy reached a secret deal to co-develop nuclear weapons with West Germany on French soil. But this plan doesn't get very far. Charles de Gaulle, the man on the left, comes to power in France and cancels this agreement. And so Italy instead focuses its efforts on strengthening NATO with conventional forces. And West Germany has a very similar story. Ninth on the list is Australia. Australia had a couple of things going for it. First, the continent has vast uranium reserves, and uranium is the first ingredient in the development of a nuclear weapon. Second, Australia was the site of British tests. We've seen Operation Hurricane before. This was the first of the UK's tests, and that actually was on Australian soil. So nuclear weapons were not foreign to the country. Moreover, Australia had some security concerns. To Australia, the Suez Crisis indicated that the United Kingdom would not honor weak security commitments. China's test in 1964 only exacerbated concerns. However, Australia did not ultimately pursue nuclear weapons. One of the chief problems was delivery. We'll talk about this later in the course, but the most expensive thing about nuclear weapons is not the development, but the delivery and maintenance of an arsenal. Australia is very far away from anyone who might be targeted by a weapon, and so seeing these large expenses associated with trying to deliver a weapon resulted in some trepidation in thinking about actually pursuing a bomb. Meanwhile, the United States, as it is consistently doing, brought about pressure on Australia when it was learning that Australia might be thinking about developing nuclear weapons. As a result, Australia did an about-face and is now a leading non-proliferation advocate, especially when it comes to nuclear weapons-free zones, areas of Earth where no nuclear weapon is allowed to be. Indonesia had a brief exploration of nuclear weapons in the 1960s. The security threats there were the United Kingdom in Malaysia and the United States in Vietnam. There's also a domestic political aspect to this, with President Sukarno trying to win support of the military by funding a nuclear weapons project. However, the president was removed from power, and with that, any thought of developing a nuclear weapon. Taiwan is number 11, and of course the chief driver here is its rivalry with China. But what pushes it a step further is concerns about US abandonment. Remember the Guam Doctrine? Yeah, it's back. However, the US discovers Taiwan's exploration and threatens to cut support if it continued, and so Taiwan ends up quitting. Romania is next on the list, and this was a bit of a pet project of its leader, Nicolae Ceausescu. However, in 1989, revolution is sweeping through Europe, and over the course of just a few days, the people within Romania suddenly rise up against Ceausescu's regime, put him on trial, and execute him. and thus ends Romania's exploration of nuclear weapons. Argentina is next, and we've talked about this one before. There was this potential for rivalry with Brazil in the late 1970s and into the 1980s, but this ultimately went away when the two countries signed a bilateral agreement. If you're interested in knowing more about that, go back to the lecture on nuclear pursuers, and you'll hear all about it. Algeria is the final country on the list. Algeria obtained reactor assistance from China, but the United States discovered this in 1991, forced Algeria to place the reactor under international safeguards, and thereby terminated Algeria's exploration of nuclear weapons. And that wraps up our list of nuclear explorers. And it also wraps up our unit on countries that have acquired nuclear weapons, pursued nuclear weapons, or explored nuclear weapons, insofar as the historical record can guide us. I hope you enjoyed this unit, and starting next time, we'll begin a unit on how nuclear weapons are actually made. See you then.